Good evening. I'm Neha Khanna, and I'm honored to be at the closing of Rejuvenate, India's first online global well-being and spiritual summit. Now, the last 3 days have been packed with eye-opening and soul-lifting lessons with musicians, scholars, peacemakers, spiritual guides, and wellness experts from all over the world. Today, we're really happy to be joined by Sri M, a spiritual guide, social reformer, environment crusader, educationist, and best-selling author to conclude this summit. Now, Sri M has been available to people throughout the globe for the last 1.5 years in particular, since the beginning of the pandemic. He's reached out to a vast multitude through his constant teachings, discourses, and talks, helping many navigate through this challenging time with his comforting words of wisdom. Sri M is a best-selling author and has written several books, including Apprenticed to a Himalayan Master, a yogi's autobiography, and a sequel, The Journey Continues, as well as texts on the Upanishads, on meditation, and a novel titled Shunya. Among the many awards and honors he's received for his contribution to society, Sri M was conferred with the Padma Bhushan in January 2020, one of the highest civilian awards in India for distinguished service of high order in spirituality. Now, in this session, Sri M will speak to us about the changing world, what we must do to survive and thrive. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. It is an honor and a pleasure to be talking to you again, to have you at the concluding session of this summit. Now, we were blissfully unaware that the world around us and within us would change so drastically as has happened since the beginning of this pandemic. It literally shook the ground beneath our feet. What would your guidance be for us to adapt, survive, and thrive in these challenging times?
Thank you, Neha. Yes. So the topic given to me, the changing world and what we must do to survive and thrive. Yeah. It was nice because the positivity project took off. I gave the opening session and now I'm asked to give the last part, which is the closing session. The title is very interesting. The changing world need not necessarily mean this 1.5 years that we have gone through with the pandemic. Reason being that the world is always changing. Well, sometimes drastic, sometimes not so drastic so that we don't notice it. So let me go into the first part of the changing world and look into it carefully so that we know that it's only when it is drastic, the change, that then we begin to panic, not otherwise. In fact, the whole of evolution has been a survival of the fittest from the beginning of time. And therefore, the only changeless thing on earth, this is a good definition I picked up from a wonderful man who was a great philosopher, a speaker, and a good friend, J. Krishnamurti. He said, the only changeless thing on earth is change. Everything changes, except that change remains always. So, unless and until we as human beings learn to adapt and change according to the changing circumstances, it's not possible to survive in this. Even if we do survive physically, it's not a real life because the mind is always in pain. I would like to start with that note. Now, look back. In 1918, there was the Spanish flu. Apparently, 30 million people died with the Spanish flu. And there was no medication available. Someone was told that you can only treat it with whiskey. So people were drinking whiskey. Of course, it only aggravated the whole thing. And after all this 30 million is much more than the number of people who died in the Second World War. And then we bounded back. We came back. Everybody forgot the Spanish flu until here comes another epidemic, which is the COVID 19. When it came, we again woke up. My suggestion is always be awake, because it is the nature of the world that dangers can happen at any time, catastrophes can happen at any time. It need not necessarily be a pandemic, it could be an earthquake, it could be a flood, it could be a war, it could be any one of these things. That calamities are part of our existence has to be acknowledged first. Not only acknowledged, therefore, we should work out survival mechanisms of how to survive when such things happen. Now, if you try to figure out what to do when it happens, it's usually too late. So get ready from the beginning. Why I'm saying this, you know, the ancient science of Ayurveda, for instance, it's a medical science. It's not like allopathy is one form of medical science, Ayurveda is another. The importance in Ayurveda is that it lays great stress on prevention. Most important thing is prevention. Now, the very meaning of the word Ayurveda is the science of life, how to live so that you lead a healthy life physically and mentally. Well, we'll leave the spiritual side for the time being, physically and mentally, to lead a healthy life. It's Ayu means life, and Ayurveda means life science. It's not a science of medicine. Medicines, of course, are prescribed, but that's part of it. The main part is how to lead your. So there's something called dinachara. Since I'm a yogi, I must stress this, that dinachara, how to lead your life, what you should eat, what you should avoid, what kind of cleanliness is required. If all these things come together, then the body is saved from infections when they occur. So prevention is better than cure. So one pandemic has come, and I think it's at Spagent moving, which doesn't mean that something else won't come tomorrow. So we should be prepared. And what is the preparation? To lead a healthy life, to follow the rules and regulations of healthy food, health, enough fresh air, which means more number of trees, and less pollution from automobile fumes, and of course, bodily exercise and mind exercise. These are essential. But if we live this way, then we can hope to survive in the changing world. I'm talking about the body and the mind. Now, the other side is how the view of human beings in general towards the world changes. We today live in a world where most of the time we are caught up with entertainment, with YouTube, with internet. While internet has its positive factors, if you didn't have internet, during this 1.5 years, I couldn't have talked to people without Zoom or without online talks. So there is a positive point to it, I understand. But there is also the negative, which is, look, in the olden days, when we needed to understand something, we used to read a book. Now, when you, even a novel, let's say a fiction, when you read fiction and somebody describes, the author says, well, it was a beautiful day, the grass was green, there was a gentle breeze blowing, the rest is supplied by our imagination. This much he says, 3 sentences, and from there, for different people, a beautiful day is different. Each person has a different definition of a beautiful day. So we needed to use our imagination. Today, as they say in Hindi, bana banaya, Everything is ready on the screen. You don't have to visualize, you don't have to imagine. So, what happens is one part of our mind, which has the creative genius of visualizing and understanding, doesn't get much exercise, no work, so it deteriorates. So, we are dependent on the external world for our happiness. Now, the ancient teaching is that happiness is an internal state. Of course, it is dependent on the outer factors to some extent, but the ancient Vedantic teaching, for instance, is in us is the essence of being, in us is the essence of happiness, in us is the strength that we seek outside. Everything is in the center of our consciousness, in the core of our consciousness, which is why the core of our consciousness has been described as Ananda. Our inner essence, our essential being is defined as Satchit Ananda, that which is real, which is conscious, and which is bliss. Not bliss through acquiring something, but blissful by its very nature. So I think to start with, we should get to the base of this and say, let me at least theoretically or hypothetically understand, because thousands of years sages have said it can't be all nonsense. So let me at least as a hypothesis understand that all the strength I need, all the energy I need, all the joy that I need is in my heart. When I say heart, I'm not talking about the organ that pumps blood. We're talking about the core of my being. You see, suddenly you walk and you see somebody smiling. The person who's smiling may be in rags, maybe not wearing footwear, but there's a shine on the face. Now compare that with someone who is wearing the costliest clothes possible, who seems to be having the latest hat on his head and the best shoes that you can get, and look at the face. No joy. So what do we what is the comparison here? Aren't we seeking joy? Aren't we seeking happiness? Or are we seeking external paraphernalia only? I must tell you the story. It's a beautiful story. Apparently, there was a prince of Patiala. Today, Patiala is in the political scene. So, anyway, it doesn't matter. So, there was a prince of Patiala who wanted to expand his territory. Now, this is the time when India was ruled by the last Mughal, Bahadur Shah Zafar, who was the last Mughal. I don't think he ruled much, but whatever. He was the emperor in Delhi. So the prince from Patiala decided that he would go and ask permission from the Mughal emperor to expand his territory. So he came to Delhi all the way, probably on a horse, riding many days. He went up and he got permission to meet the emperor after many days waiting. And then he met. And the old Bahadur Shah Zafar was sitting on his throne, and this prince from Patiala, I'm sure he must have been a robust Sikh, probably, asked him permission to expand his territory. The emperor said, "Come with me near the window." So he was living in the Red Fort. He said, "Look down from the window, down below on the ground." He looked. Under a tree, there was a fakir sitting. You know who a fakir is? Was probably nothing to own, with a baking bowl in his hand. There was a fakir there. He said, "Look at his face." He was smiling. He was looking up at the sun, put one hand up, and he was smiling. He had nothing, but he was smiling. And then he said, "Now look at the face of the emperor in Delhi." He looked at Bahadur Shah Zafar, sad face. So he asked him a question: "Who do you think is happy? The fakir sitting there, or the emperor who's wearing the crown. Now think about it for some time and then come back to me. And if you still want to expand your territory, I will let you do that. I'll give you permission. The story goes that the prince disappeared and never came back to ask for expanded Patiala. He never came back. Nobody knew where he went. Since the prince went off, that little kingdom was given to somebody else. Must be some of the little outskirts of Patiala, I don't know exactly where. After many years, the then ruler of that place, the Raja, decided to go on a pilgrimage. So he traveled, he came to Rishikesh. Idea was to go to Badrinath. And there in Badrinath, he was told by some of the Pandits, since you're going on a great pilgrimage to Badrinath. Now, those days it was very difficult to go to Badrinath. And being a Sikh, he probably also wanted to go to the Sikh shrine, which is beyond the Valley of Flowers. I forget the name of this place. Um, since you're going on such an arduous journey, even today it's arduous, it's not so easy, go and get blessings from saints and go. So he said, no, where are the saints? They said, there is one saint who lives in Lakshman Jhula in a cave. Go take his blessings. So the prince went there to take his blessings, bowed down and said, Maharaj, please bless me. I'm going to Badrinath. Okay. The uh, yogi with matted hair who was sitting there opened his eyes and said, Tathastu, may that be, may blessings be on you. And then they heard the voice of, the prince heard the voice of the yogi. And it was a familiar voice. He said, this is my brother. Sounds like my brother's voice. So he said, brother, are you sitting here? Are you becoming yogi? Huh? Maharaj, have you become a yogi? Please come back and take back your crown, because I am a king, because you are not there. So he said, what did you call me just now? You called me Maharaj, right? He said, yes. So now I am the Maharaj of this universe. I don't want your little kingdom near Patiala. Keep it with you. And closed his eyes and went into meditation. What, what does it mean? It means whatever be the circumstances, to survive and thrive, we need to have confidence in the inner energies and consciousness which are in us. And it is right inside us. It is the core of our consciousness. The ancient Upanishads called it Purna, completeness. This is the psychological aspect. The physical aspect I discussed some time back, which is proper food, proper diet, good exercise, and ways and means to make your mind steady and calm under all circumstances. Because when you're faced with a pandemic, for instance, it's not a normal situation. You're bound to panic. I don't blame people who panic. It happens. I have a feeling, and it has been proved also, that much of the suffering could have been avoided if the panic was not there. You know what happens with panic? The defense system of our body becomes weak. When what I mean is what's that? The immunity factor in us, which is there in full force in a healthy body, weakens the moment fear sets in. So here you see everybody, people are dying every day. Suddenly you find someone near and dear to you is gone, and then you find, I can't breathe, I have to go. Then somebody says there are no oxygen cylinders available. Panic, general panic. That reduces the immunity of the system. And therefore, any virus, forget COVID-19, any virus that attacks your system finds it easier to become a host. The body becomes a host to all these viruses. And therefore, freedom from fear can come only if the mind is calm under all circumstances, which is what Krishna said in the Gita, Sarvatra Samabuddhaya, under all circumstances, be tranquil, because tranquility is something which we need to positively cultivate, not wait for it to come. So this is the psychological part of it. Now, there is there are techniques by which you can boost your immunity. In yoga, there are techniques by which you can boost your immunity. Of course, the mind is very important. It's not just a physical activity. But we in yoga, look, I have passed through the same pandemic. I'm 72 years old physically. Okay. And just now I had a visiting politician who said, I saw you 25 years ago. You look the same except for your hair, which is gray. I said, because I don't dye my hair. So um, it's the art of living, not the art of dying. So there we go. So what I mean to say is that there are techniques by which the body and the mind can be kept tranquil and healthy, which is the way to survive and thrive. Because in this world, even if there is no pandemic, now the pandemic will go off, I'm sure, then still we can thrive and survive only if the positivity factor is in it. That's why I love this name, the Positivity Project. You have to be positive. And yoga, according to yoga, the science of yoga, the body has different kinds of life energies, which together we call, with one word we use, prana. Now, this prana moves through different nadis in the system. Nadis means channels. Most of the factors of negativity, including fear and weakness that comes through disease, and the incapacity to fight against infection, the immunity factor becoming zero almost, according to yoga, science of yoga, is because the prana is not properly functioning in the system. So therefore, we have the science of pranayama. Please note, all that I said before this applies. Proper diet, proper exercise, enough sleep, uh, fresh air, all this applies. Apart from that, the prana has to be put in its place, in its proper rhythm. It's usually not very rhythmic. It's kind of erratic and like waves going up and down. So, in the science of pranayama, you learn how to adjust your prana. Now, the prana is, there is positive prana and there is negative prana, plus and minus. When I say negative, it doesn't mean negative in the bad sense, but like cathode and anode, two charges. If these are not balanced, then the body suffers, the mind suffers. Forget about spiritual development, nothing happens in the spirit world. So, to balance the prana is one of the steps we need to take as far as a practical exercises in yoga are concerned. And this is the science of pranayama. Now, there's a simple pranayama by which you can balance your prana and apana. And that is, first, learn to breathe. I'm saying this because many of the problems of this COVID infection could have been avoided if people only knew how to breathe. We are even forgotten how to breathe. We do shallow breathing. I can tell you this, there are 10 people who have already been infected. Their lungs have been affected. Out of that, if 2 people know how to breathe properly, they will probably have a better survival rate than the others. So how do we breathe properly? First, deep breathing is required. Shallow breathing is just, this is shallow breathing. Take a deep breath. When I say take a deep breath, put your hands up. What happens? This part of the lungs expands and there is space for the air to enter into your bronchioles. What is that called? Little things in the lungs, those little cavities. So when you breathe in, put your hands up. This is what I advise. Many people have derived great benefit during this period, dangerous period, with this exercise. Take a deep breath, put your hands up. Now push your air down into the lungs. You have been taught somewhere that you should push your stomach in and hold your breath in the chest. Okay. But we also have to push the air down into the abdominal area, diaphragm. Hold it for a second, then push your stomach in and take it to the chest, then exhale. This is deep breathing. It fills your system with completely with oxygen, and that is one thing which can fight any infection. If you practice for 1 week deep breathing, you will be surprised to see that many of the infections that affect your breathing system, especially the lungs, and this COVID 19 was doing exactly that. You can free yourself. Now, if you start doing this even when you are not infected, there is little chance of being infected. Of course, you have to take precautions, social distancing, wearing masks. I can understand. But wearing masks is not such a bad thing. Jain monks have been wearing masks for 1,000 years. There's nothing wrong with it. Any doctor who goes into an operation theater wears a mask. So when you do that for a particular purpose, don't attach any stigma to it. It's perfectly natural. Okay, then the rest, keep your mind quiet and tranquil in the midst of circumstances. In this changing world, that's one way to survive. Because you can't expect the world not to change. It will. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. I'm in college, let's say. I fall in love with a girl, suppose. Suppose. And then I expect a girl to respond to me. Well, the response goes on for some time till she finds somebody, maybe she thinks is smarter, and she's gone. What happens to me? I'm down in the dumps. In fact, sometimes I lie down in bed, I feel I'm suffocating. Why? Because all I thought that had built up in my life is gone. This is the time when one should say to oneself, listen, things are bound to change. This is a changing world. Someone is here with you tomorrow, that person may be with somebody else today, person may be with someone else tomorrow. So what's your problem? Can you be steady? Where do you find your happiness? In someone external or in your heart? So this is the teaching of the great yogic science, that if you turn within, you find all strength, all joy, all tranquility in your heart. I'm talking about the psychological aspect now. The great weaver saint Kabir Das had a beautiful metaphor which he used. He said it's human beings are like the kasturi murga. You know what's a kasturi murga? A musk deer. The musk deer in a particular season, it has a little pouch under its mm, abdomen, where during a particular season, musk is produced, kasturi is produced. And there's a beautiful fragrance in the air. We know that because many of our perfumes, they use musk. So you know the smell of musk. The poor deer doesn't realize that the fragrance is coming from its under its belly button. It goes looking for the source of the uh, fragrance everywhere in the forest, pushes its snoot into thorny bushes, bleeds, but doesn't know where the fragrance is coming from. Kabir Das said, this is our problem. We are looking for joy outside. When deep inside, if you turn in, the kasturi is inside our hearts. And how do you find it? Just turn in and look for some time. And the fragrance increases when you become less self-centered and try to help others in distress. We had a wonderful chance to do that now during this pandemic. 1.5 years. Well, if you can't go to the hospitals and help people, try to do something which influences them. I couldn't go to hospitals and help people, but we were doing our online programs, giving giving courage to people, saying, stand up, please don't worry, things will move, and so on. So it's not only, so it's a very delicate balance between the mind and the body. I'm sorry, that was ah. So this is something which you have to understand if you have to survive and thrive in this changing world, that the world will continue to change. It may change to positive. For some time it has been negative. It will now change to positive, but we should be always ready and prepared, fearless, turn within for joy, increase your immunity through the breathing exercises and through meditation. And don't think only about oneself, but think about others. The moment you think about others, our fear becomes less, actually. Again, I'm going to soon wind up this talk. When the great Buddha was somewhere in Gaya, uh, a lady went to him holding the dead body of a child in her hands. She put the child before the Buddha and said, my son has died. Can you bring him back to life? The Buddha said, I grieve with you for what has happened. But may I suggest something? Leave him here. Go to all the houses around and find out any house where nobody has died ever. And if there is such a house, get a mustard seed and bring it to me. And then I'll bring your son back to life. The poor lady searched everywhere. There was not a single house where someone hadn't died at some point. She came back and said, I couldn't find the mustard. By then she had got the lesson. She said, so the Buddha said, you grieve for your son. The time when your son died, thousands of sons and daughters have died in this world. Why? Because this is life. Things change, things move. We should learn to stand firm in the midst of this. First, you need the confidence which is right inside you. And if that is not enough, there are others who say, look, this is how it is. I have felt it. You will feel it. Two, follow the rules of good health, good food, good exercise, fresh air, and keep your mind tranquil. Fear destroys immunity. So don't allow fear to creep in spite of all circumstances. Balance your prana through pranayama and try to help others as best as you can. In relation to the pandemic we have just passed through, we are still at the fag end. There are still the viruses lurking here and there. We need to be careful. So having said all this, I would repeat once again, wash your hands, wear masks, keep social distancing. There's no harm. People have learned that to do namaste is a wonderful way of greeting. I saw a video, Prince Charles is about to shake hands with somebody. So there are two aspects to what has happened to us over the last 1.5 years. One is the negative aspect. A lot of harm has taken place. What is the positive aspect? It has taught us how to survive, how to live, how to overcome the weaknesses that have come over us. That's the positive side of it. So if you keep both these together, I'm sure in future we would be able to overcome uh, anything that happens which is negative, which looks negative, which can also give us positive lessons. So in this changing world, this is the way we could survive and thrive. And the major point is the positivity factor. You call it the positivity project, I call it the positivity factor. Having said that, I would chant one of the ancient Sanskrit hymns, which is about wellness. Sarve bhavantu sukinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukhabad bhavet, loka samasta sukino bhavantu. Simply, to put it in a nutshell, it means may the entire world be happy, may no one suffer sorrow. Even chanting this mantra repeatedly many times brings about change in the mind, which reflects on the minds of others. Because we're social human beings, what happens here is reflected in the other mind. So, saying this, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, peace, I think I conclude today's Positivity Project talk, the spiritual summit called Rejuvenate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shriyam, for your words of profound wisdom. I'm sure a lot of people would have gained a lot of strength from whatever you said, because we all know the last year and a half has been a very, very challenging time for most of us. The suffering for some has been worse than for the others, but there's probably nobody who's been untouched by what the entire globe has witnessed and continues to deal with on a daily basis. Therefore, sir, if I could ask you to share a simple mantra that we could adopt to develop inner strength to be able to cope with the challenges of these times, what would you say is that one simple mantra that we all need to adopt?
Well, there is an ancient mantra which is called the Mahamrityunjaya. Not only because of the meaning of the mantra, but also because of the sound effect of the words that are put into it. And this Mahamrityunjaya mantra is very short, it's not very long. I can chant it. You can remember and chant it later. It's Om. No, Om is a pranava, the life force that is added to most mantras. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urva Rukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat. That means, O three-eyed being, which is Shiva, the supreme being here. It says, Om, O three-eyed being, Om Trayambakam, I worship you, Yajamahe, Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam, whose quality is fragrance and strength, Pushti, robustness. Urva Rukamiva Bandhana, it's a beautiful metaphor, like the kaddu, the pumpkin, that when it becomes fully ripe, falls off from its stem automatically. In the same way, Urva Rukamiva Bandhanan, as it breaks his bandhan, Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat, break my bondage with death. Make me immortal. Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat, free me from Mrityu. This is a beautiful mantra which it's very short, it can be chanted. Sit down in the morning, chant it few times. Go in the night when you go to sleep, chant few times. Think of the three-eyed Shiva or just think of a linga and then go to sleep. This is a beautiful mantra.
Beautiful mantra indeed, sir. Now, I know you said earlier that loss is an inevitable part of life. Life is constantly changing and evolving. Yet, fact of the matter is that we, being the ordinary mortals that we are, struggle to come to terms with any kind of loss.
I agree.
How therefore, should we deal with the uncertainty of life and start accepting more gracefully a loss that befalls us, especially when, you say young people losing their lives or entire families being wiped out, as we've seen in the last year and a half?
I can only say that when a thing like that happens, however much I preach, whatever I say, It's not so easy to overcome. Let's be realistic about this. I can say this about others. When something happens in my own family, then it's not such an easy thing to philosophize or to do other. So it takes time. Only time can heal this wound. Yes. However, there are ways and means by which you can kind of make it milder effect on you. One is to understand, even though you don't experience it, that when the body dies, the immortal soul does not. Now, when someone is your son or your mother or your wife is dead, it's not good to go and preach this to somebody. They might think, what is this guy talking nonsense? But it's true from our experience that the soul does not die. It moves from one room to another. At least theoretically, if you have this understanding, then you say, oh, the person is not gone, but it's gone for me. Somewhere the person survives in some other form or as a soul or whatever. So that belief makes us a little strong.
Mhm.
Uh, Apart from that, we should also see the fact that life is always changing, and someone who was with us a few years ago is no more now. So we have to accept the fact on one side. On the other side, we should also then go into the ancient teachings which say that when the body dies, the soul does not, but it survives. And perhaps it's in a good world. Who knows? At least you can say, who knows? Suspend your judgment. That itself will bring a lot of relief. Now, the third is try to do things which that person who was with us and who is no more now loved to do. Suppose there was a person who was very fond of his or her dog. Came COVID one day and he was gone or she was gone. One way to keep your heart happy is to look after that dog as this person looked after it before. You know, if you ask me, the soul of that person would rejoice at this, would say, well, I'm gone, but someone is taking care of my dog, which was the dearest thing in my life. There are such people, believe me. So, this kind of action brings about also peace to us. We are fulfilling the unfulfilled ambitions of someone who is here and gone.
Right.
So, here are a few things that one can do. But
Mhm.
beyond that, I would still say that
Mhm.
only time can heal the wound. There's
Yeah.
no point in preaching. But if you remember these points, it might help to smoothen up the movement towards peace, to become a little better. And day by day, there are people, but these are rare, who, the moment they lose the near and dear ones, begin to take care of the dear and near ones of others. Now, this is a rare breed. Everybody doesn't have that capacity. If you, by some chance, have even a small 1% of that, then your grief is washed away because you're looking at other people's grief and saying, can I do something about it? I mean, this is about all I can say about this.
Right. Now, when somebody goes through a major loss, um, there are different stages of grief and pain that one goes through. In the last year and a half, we've actually seen people suffer all kinds of losses: losing a loved one, loss of health, loss of a job. Now, acceptance is one thing, but how does one bounce back and return to living life fully? What would your advice be?
First, what has happened cannot be tinkered with. You can't go back and do anything out there because you can't. What happened? Screen went. Uh, the You can't go back and tinker with that. Understood? Okay. Now, what we should understand, that all this has happened. That doesn't mean we should, in our mind, continue to hold it. I'll give you an example which is similar to this, but it's easily understandable example. Suppose you or someone else hurt me at some point, deliberately, let's say 20 years ago, you hurt me. The person who hurt me may be alive, may be dead, may be gone, we don't know. And this happened 20 years ago. Now, the fact is, what happened 20 years ago no longer exists. It's over. That slap or that hurt is over. But I will not allow it to go because I keep it in my mind like a tape that keeps playing on and on and on. This person hurt me. I must get back to this person. I might be doing so many things, but deep down is there that I must get back. This happened 20 years ago. He hurt me or she hurt me, whatever. I'm saying that the actual fact of the hurt is over. It's not there anymore. Where is it then? Only in my head. So therefore, can I understand this, that it's only a tape working in my head and throw it out of the window? It's a deliberate act. It takes time, of course. But when I go to sleep at night, I open the window and say, look, this thought is not doing any good to me. It's a festering wound which is creating trouble for me, which is making me sick, angry, all kinds of things. Can I throw this out like a deliberate act? And then I say, okay, I'm sleeping now. Tomorrow is a new day. Actually, tomorrow is a new day. I wake up fresh and look at the world in a different way. I've forgotten that. It takes time. In the same way, if we don't leave the hurts and the pains that we have suffered behind and hold on to it in a kind of, it's also a kind of, I would say, subtle enjoyment of pain. Uh, there are some retired, I've seen some retired, I've seen one retired general who in the night sits down outside in the garden, nice man, wonderful man, with a peg of whiskey in his hand on the rocks and listens to sad songs of Saigal, Jab Dilli Hi Toot Gaya and so on. But he seems to be enjoying. Some because of course that one peg becomes two and three, that's a different story. But he seems to be he seems to be caught in some grief which he is not likely to let go. If he let go of that, life would be brighter for him. He wouldn't need to be dependent on his whiskey even. So we should think about these matters. This is food for thought and say, can we leave this behind and move forward? I can do nothing anyway. I can't go back. If somebody broke my heart and ran away, I can't do anything now. The person is gone, right?
Absolutely, sir. Some of those things that you've said there are just so profound and certainly have resonated with me, and I'm very sure have resonated with others too. When you say it's really important that we leave the hurt and the pain behind, that tape that's constantly running in our head needs to be thrown out of the window. And tomorrow is a new day. I think those words are powerful. They should give us a lot of hope, no matter how much pain we may be in right now. But
Not easy, not easy, but possible.
not easy. Not easy, but possible, and we have to work towards it.
Yes.
But I have to ask you this, because fate versus free will. Now, this is a debate that has gone on perhaps since time immemorial. Why do I ask you this question again? Recently, during the second wave of the pandemic, we saw so many people, despite being in possession of material wealth, couldn't access basics like a hospital bed
And somebody
for a
is
loved one.
say that I'm busy recording. Mm.
So, with all the money in the world, if somebody could not get access to a hospital bed for a loved one who's critically ill, they obviously felt they were completely at the mercy of fate. They couldn't do anything about that situation. And that's what I want to ask you, sir. In such situations, do we really have a choice? Is there any such thing as a free will in those situations, or does fate completely take over?
It is not, you can't call it destiny, you may call it chance. I don't want to call it destiny because in this world, the other day we were reading Yoga Vasishta. Vasishta advises Rama. The great Rama is in depression and Vasishta is advising him. This is called Yoga Vasishta. Now, in which he says, people who say everything is destiny are donkeys. I'm not using my words, Vasishta, the Rishi Vasishta's words, because this is a very fatalistic way of thinking. Everything is governed by destiny. Then we don't need to do anything at all. When something good happens, we are ready to say, I did this. Something bad happened, oh, it is destiny, right? So I would say such a chance that it has happened. Don't better not to use the word destiny because it can become a what you call a weight on our neck, which will not allow us to do anything. So while yes, some things we cannot do anything about, like nature's disasters, we can't do anything about. You may say, oh, this is, but you can't say it is destined to happen. It could have been prevented. Could have. We don't know how, but could have been prevented. If when diseases came for thousands of years, if people had, at one time when smallpox came, people thought it is the goddess's curse and it is destined to happen. So it has happened. But somebody went and invented the vaccination. We have no smallpox now. If we had said this is destiny, we would still be having smallpox. So it is true that certain things can't be altered. It may be that circumstances are such that they happen, but it's not, especially for young people like you. I won't say me, but like you. If you say destiny, then whole life comes to a grinding halt because everything is destined. No, we need to work towards it. It is true. What the example you gave, somebody is very sick, suddenly they can't find oxygen cylinders. Well, it is no. I would say blame the government. Why didn't we get the oxygen cylinders? Try to get them next time. We couldn't help it at that time. But if I say that this is bound to happen, then I cannot move forward. I can't change the situation. So, like for instance, we all are the result, product of 3 million years of genetic evolution. We can't do anything about that. You can call it destiny. We can't do anything about that. Having said that, we still can change certain things in life. So I'm saying if there is some destiny at all, it could be a large blueprint. But within that, there are ways and means by which their free will can be used. If free will cannot be used, it is meaningless to live in this world. It's such a fatalistic concept. Everything will happen as it happens. Right? Jo ho, so ho. No. I don't personally believe in that. If I had not worked hard on my sadhana, I would not have reached the balance of mind which I possess today. I also thought at some point when I couldn't meditate, maybe I'm not destined to meditate. I needed a knock on my head from Babaji to say, hey, stand up, do it again.
I understand, sir. Of course, one has to agree with you. Fate may play its part in our in our lives, but we can't leave things to fate. We have to exercise free
We
will.
have to fight. We have to stand up. This is the way to survive
Exactly.
and thrive.
Survive and thrive. Absolutely. That's the name of the game. And as you rightly said, we can't evolve if we leave everything to fate. We have to do a lot of the work ourselves.
Absolutely.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the new normal that
New,
has,
new what?
the new normal that everyone keeps talking about, thanks to the pandemic, the way our lives have changed. For example, we're now working from home, a lot of us still hardly socializing. We've cut down drastically on our travels. That's also brought down our carbon footprint. Is that a sign that we need to keep at it, that certain changes that have come about are good, we need to stick with those? Now we've realized, for example, that we don't have to necessarily fly from one place to another to have a meeting. We can do it online the way we are having one right now. So are these
Perfect.
important
Perfect.
lessons we've learned that we need to stick to in the days ahead, even once the pandemic is over?
I think so. Um, it's also a boost to technology, actually. I'm a very pro technology person. I'm not anti technology. I may be a yogi, but I think it's quite helpful in many ways. So now that we were forced to limit our movements, it's a good idea to stick to it. I think most we were once upon a time just running around like, mad ants running around. There are some kind of ants which go here, there, and then go back in this direction. Why? We can sit at home and do many things. However, please exercise. You, you can exercise at home, you don't have to run around. But you can sit down in one place, you get more time to think, more time to be creative. All these are plus factors that have come from this pandemic. When you look at the bright spots in the most murky situations, you'll find that these are plus factors that we have learned to minimize our movements and sit down and work from home, create from home, and do many things which we thought was not possible at one time. But then we are not still quite accustomed to that. Having said all that, I must also say that actually meeting somebody is different from meeting them on the internet. I have to say this because
Yeah,
it's a
they're
fact.
not the same.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that we should be always running around like mad. We can sit down and do it in a better pace than before. So, this is one positive advantage that has happened. Plus, the factor of keeping yourself clean and hygienic, because washing your hands, all these things were at one time, some people thought these are only religious acts. What is the need of always washing your? Now we have to do it. We are forced to do it. It's a good habit.
Mhm.
So there are some good habits which we have got from this. Anything that is bad also has its good part. Where there is darkness, there is also the other side, the light. So I think we should look at the positive aspect of what has happened
Mhm.
and move forward.
Where there is darkness, there is light. But I certainly hope that our next meeting is in person and not online. But, sir, everyone just keeps asking, when will life go back to being normal the way it was before the pandemic? Do you think it'll ever be the way it was before the pandemic? Or is it something we should not even be trying to achieve, that we've just got to move with the times, evolve? What's your take on that?
I think life will be back to normal is a state of mind, not a physical thing.
Mhm.
Which means when we are free of the fear of being infected and so on, then the mind becomes free. It's not quite physical that way. You know what I'm trying to say? That go back to normal means what? Were we normal or were we abnormal before? We need to think about this. So when you say normal, if it means good health,
Mhm.
quiet life, tranquility, yes, we will go back to that, no question. But why should we go back to something just because we were there before? We can go back to something new. I think a new mode of life will open up now. I'm not talking about internet only,
Mhm.
where people will learn to live carefully and make sure that they lead a full, robust life just like before, plus all the, uh, uh, what do you call that? Uh, I can't get the word. All the things that we need to do to make sure that this pandemic doesn't break out in future.
Yeah, of course.
If you add that to normal life, then we are going back to normal, of course. But I don't like going back to normal. We are normal. There is no need to go back. That's an image that we
Okay.
have. So if you stay with this normal and move forward, you're getting into a new normal, which may be different and better than the old. Why not? Why shouldn't we experiment on this?
I agree. So even as we seek normalcy, you're saying let's not talk of going back, let's move forward.
The weather beaten normalcy, no,
Yes.
new normalcy.
Right. Now, as we wrap up this discussion, I mean, it's always so nice to talk to you, fascinating to
Thank you.
hear your wisdom. But, a lot of questions still left. But since we need to wrap up the session, I'll ask you this
Yeah.
one last question, sir.
Oh, it's 8 o'clock.
One last question.
Okay.
Charles Darwin talked about the survival of the fittest. Do you think we've stretched that a bit far and become more self centered in a bit to survive and thrive? And how can we really do well for ourselves while also allowing others to flourish according to
Yeah.
you?
Survival of the fittest is a very gross way of putting evolution, I think. Even though Charles Darwin said that from a biological point of view. But Charles Darwin was not talking from the psychological point of view. Please understand this.
Okay.
Let's understand, not you, I mean me. Let's understand this. That when he says survival of the fittest, it's a biological process of survival of the organism. He was not talking about the psychological survival of the fittest. When that comes, we are not moving or evolving, we are going down. Because selflessness comes only for a human being as he matures and develops and evolves. So, we shouldn't quote Charles Darwin in this matter. Because if everybody thinks only of his survival or her survival, the world will be a battlefield.
Yeah.
People say, look, I look after my child, I get food for them, I look after them, and I'm a good person, so I'm okay. So what is wrong with me? I always tell them, even the monkeys look after their young. No big deal. It's built into the system. It's in your blood. It's in your genes. You look after the. If you look after the neighbor's child, then you're evolved. Well, if the neighbor welcomes it, of course. Then you evolve. So I don't think this survival of the fittest is a good word, a good uh, view to take
Mhm.
about the growth and evolution of the mind. We're talking about that now,
Yeah.
not the organism. He's right in his organic biological way, but not in the way of the mind. Here, it should be survival of all as much as possible, not just one. And survival of excellence, of kindness, of compassion, of togetherness. This should be the survival word. Then the world would be a better place. If we carry the organic survival into our psychological part, then we are doomed, because we become so self-centered that we can't even bear it with somebody else's developing. So this is what I think.
Absolutely true, sir. And, on that note, I'd say it's been an absolutely enlightening session. It's
Thank you.
been such a pleasure and an honor talking to you again, listening to your profound words of wisdom. And I'm sure that all of us will gain some strength from this. It'll help us deal better with the daily battles of life.
Thank you.
So
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Neha. It's always been a pleasure. Mm.
Thank you so much, sir. And like I said, I really hope that our next meeting is in person and not online. But
Sure.
I'm so glad that you've been there to share your time and perspective with us and with all those people who are listening to you right now and who would have definitely gained from everything that you had to say. Thank you so much, Riem. Thank you. And well, with this, we've come to the end of Rejuvenate, presented by the Positivity Project. This would not, of course, have been possible without the help of our esteemed panel of speakers and performers who've participated wholeheartedly with their wise words, inspiring stories, and unique tools and techniques. A very special thank you to our speakers, moderators, and the back-end team that made all of this come to life. We'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, presenting partner, the Bodh Gaya Temple Management Committee, associate partner, Society Tea, thought partner, WISpeak PR, digital partner, ThePrint, event partner, Cab Experiences. And of course, also a special thanks to Palace Collection by Adil Ahmad, Kama Ayurveda, and the Angels Network for supporting our vision. And to all of you who've tuned in over the last 3 days, our heartfelt gratitude to you. And we hope these sessions have helped you rejuvenate. That's what we tried to do. Thank you so much. See you next time.